Don, welcome back to my channel.
In today's video, we'll talk about acrylic paints for miniature painting. We'll talk about painting methods, paint types, and what to get as we paint this Abaddon the Despoiler and turn it into this. So if you're new to the channel, basically I'll talk about paints in general, the different types, different methods, and what to get while you see that I'm painting the Abaddon miniature. There are so many paint brands and paints for miniature painting these days. In this video, we'll talk about what to get and what to know if you are a beginner or someone looking to expand your paint collection. Oh, by the way, the Abaddon miniature is a commission painting for a private collector in UK. Also, this channel is supported by all these awesome brands, and this channel won't be possible without the support of my awesome patrons. As we talk about as we talk about paints for miniature painting, I'll try to keep my biases to myself because I've been a sponsored artist or painter for more than a decade now. So naturally, admittedly, I have biases, especially if the paints were sponsored. So anyways, let's talk about miniature painting or the paints that we use in miniature painting. This is a very wide topic, so we'll just talk about acrylics. Also, I'll refrain from talking about acrylics formulated for airbrushing. There are two basic types of acrylic paints for miniature painting. One are the normal paints. The normal paints are paints that you would use for base colors and for highlighting, and sometimes you could thin them down for glazing. The other type of acrylic paints for miniature painting are the specialized paints. These are contrast paints, express colors, inks, and of course, speed paints. Although Citadel shades and Army Painter quick shades are really good for miniature painting, some washes from other brands are too subtle in my opinion for miniature painting. They're better off used for fine scale modeling or even weathering, but for miniature painting, they're kinda like slow to build up because they're very subtle. So I don't like including them in these lists. For basic paints, you're looking for good coverage, very good coverage, and of course, a little bit of ease when it comes to thinning. For specialized paints, on the other hand, you're looking for contrast, not contrast paints, but the contrast the specialized paints produces, and of course, the flow so that it's very easy to apply on the surface of the miniature. Now, painting methods. There are two basic types of painting methods in my opinion. One is the GW painting method, wherein you paint the base colors, you add a quick wash, and then you paint the highlights. The other one is slop chop, or basically light zenithal or white primer, and then you paint with transparent paints or specialized paints. It is best to learn basic miniature painting by using normal paints and painting the base colors and then applying a bit of wash and painting the highlights. This is the GW method. I think that this is the best method if you're still learning. However, painting via slop chop or using contrast paints, and here you see me using speed paints over white primer, is like the most fun. Speed paints and contrast paints produces like really nice painting really fast. They give you a subtle shade and a nice base color, and sometimes, especially for speed paints, it produces nice subtle highlights. Basically, dry brushing or like white primer and then painting with the specialized paints is called it's called slop chop these days. And the reason why it's so famous, it's because it's very relaxing and you don't really need so much skill to pull off a good painting or to produce a good miniature, and thus the popularity of the method. Now we talk about what paints to get if you want to start painting miniatures. Like I said, the best way to learn how to paint miniatures is the GW method, meaning painting the base colors, a bit of wash, and then highlighting. This will give you very nice practice of the different basic techniques in painting a miniature. However, if you're thinking of getting like a mega set of Army Painter speed paints or even contrast paints, I wouldn't stop you because you will enjoy painting with these specialized paints. Besides, once you really enjoy this hobby, you'll tend to really get different kinds of paints or even different brands of paints, even though they're the same kind. Because you tend to explore a bit more and you'll want the colors from another brand and a set of colors from another brand. So it makes it more exciting to combine all these brands, to be honest, and also you produce different results. But it's very important that eventually you know how the paints the drying time and how the paints look like once it's dry, especially the layering of all these paints. So you really need to get to know all your paints, especially as you grow your paint collection. So needless to say, to decide what paints to buy, especially if it's your first set of paints, it's basically you need to define what painting method that you want to apply, that you want to try out. Another major factor in deciding what paints to purchase or get is the accessibility of the paints. Accessibility is very important. Here in the Philippines, I prefer Hyro paints. They have very insane coverage. They're really nice to highlight with and to paint the basic base colors. And I will never run out of paints because they're made in the Philippines. However, I tend to use paints that are more accessible or are accessible to more people because my audience is US, UK, Germany, Italy, Spain, and France. So I use paints that are accessible to people that are in those countries. Now, how do you grow your collection? If you have starter paints already, you have speed paints, and you have a handful of war paints or Vallejos or AK. So basically, or ideally, if you have good base colors already, paints for base colors and highlighting like Vallejo Game or AK and war paints, basically you don't really need to buy other paints that are of the same type. You need to slowly grow your specialized paints too. For example, for me, I'm biased, but cuttlefish colors are pre-glazed paints. Thus, they're a very good addition to my very big collection of paints already because they're really good at glazing. Thus, I don't really need to thin down my Vallejos or AK or my other paints to have really nice glazing because I have cuttlefish colors. So when it comes to acrylics, in my opinion, you grow your collection and then make sure that you have very versatile paints. You have different paints that does different types that are good with glazing, good with base colors, or even good with highlighting. So you kinda diversify your paint collection so that you produce different effects with the painting of one miniature.
Now, before I reveal a ton of thanks to all my patrons, because without my patrons, this channel won't be possible.
Now we have to address this question. You don't really need to have a lot of paints like I do, to be a good miniature painter. It's just that sometimes, or most of the time, if you have a lot of paints, Basically, you'll be painting more efficiently because you'll be mixing a little bit less, or if you have specialized paints, your glazes and washes or shades are easier or faster to apply, and everything, like the whole process, just flows very smoothly. So if you're a total beginner, on the other hand, or learner, just get a set of a brand of paint, normal paint, that is very accessible to you. So get like 8 or 16 basic colors, and then I highly recommend that you like get your next set would be specialized paints. That could be contrast paints or speed paints. So having a good 16 high quality acrylic paints, base colors, for base colors or highlighting basically normal acrylic paints, and then having like a set of contrast paints or speed paints will get you a long way, especially if you're just starting to enjoy the hobby. I don't want to name brands, but some paint brands are really good at formulating paints that has very good coverage, which should be great for base colors and highlighting and detail painting. However, the same brand can be so bad at producing washes. So, you don't really have to stick to one brand because other brands are good in one type of paint and the other brands are good with the other type of paints. So again, you don't really need to have a huge collection of paints, but more paints, more versatility, and more fun.
That's it, Pansit. I hope you like the video and watch these other videos.